Okay, guys, so once again, here I am with Patricia Martinez from Stewart Title. Every now and again we do little brainstorming sessions when we talk about things, trends that are happening either with the market or with title or changes in the contracts and stuff like that, so we can better serve our community and get our buyers and our sellers, get them to the transaction, to where they need to be with the real estate needs in a smoother way. And something that we were talking about, besides the trends in prices and days on the market and stuff like that, something that we have been seeing in the past couple of months more is some fraud. And here to talk a little bit more about that is our very own Patricia Martinez.
Thank you so much, Edgar, for having me here. It's always a pleasure coming in, brainstorming with you, talk about what's happening, what we're hearing, what we have to be aware of. So lately, we've been hearing a lot where there's people on Zillow representing to be sellers, especially on land deals, where maybe the agents have customers that are ready to buy land. They're looking for land in some part of town. So when you go into Zillow, you see that people are selling that land. So you contact that Zillow
Seller.
seller owner, which of course they are not the owners of that land. So what happens? We go through the whole transaction, and we've seen it across the board. So it's kind of a nationwide trend that's happening. Everybody's trying to get creative in this market, and so I believe what they're doing is it's easier on land because it doesn't take a lot of time. The sales are quick, mostly cash deals, so nothing's financed. And so what's happening is they're closing. They're not, we send documents out of town for them to close. We don't know. They decide that they want to use their own notary. And most of the time, the notary and that fraudulent seller are actually working together to get those documents notarized, sent over back to us. Cash transaction, it goes all the way to closing, even policy issued, until the title companies are taking notice and saying, hey, you know what? This property was not transferred from the correct
Seller.
owner, seller. And so it is very important that we check. So for a lot of the agents, what I'm recommending is if you're not talking directly with that seller and you know that they're the owner of the property, let us know right away, especially where you got that lead from, if it's a Zillow lead. That way we can be more alert. We've been put on alert with our underwriting department and everything because, like I said, national trend, it's happening everywhere, not just here in El Paso. And so us at Stewart Title, we're doing a little bit more research on these type of properties so that that doesn't happen because, of course, you're representing the buyer. Now we have to turn around and tell your buyer, you know what, you actually purchased some land that doesn't really belong to you. And so it's tough. So we're doing a lot of more things on these type of transactions. So we're going to be asking a lot more questions. We're going to be sending out different types of correspondence to the sellers of record so we can make sure they are the ones that are trying to transfer the property.
So that's exactly what Patricia said is happening, and I know there's a lot of information, and we're gonna try to digest it a little bit, more in sections here, so we can all have a better grasp of what's happening. As Patricia said, people are getting creative, and people, doing fraud. They're not the exception. They're also getting creative in this market. Towards the end of last year, I saw a lot of people that were renting houses that didn't belong to them. It happened to some of the agents that I know and to myself. I sold a house, and my buyers were moving into this house, and then another family showed up trying to move in. Well, this family had contacted a homeowner through Zillow, one of those national pages, and they had used the pictures that I had taken for my listing, and they had rented that house with somebody else. They paid a deposit, they paid the first month rent, and when they show up to the property, there's actually somebody living in there. Unfortunately, these tenants were not represented, and they were talking by a realtor, by a licensed realtor, and they were talking to a homeowner that happened to not be the homeowner. They were just posting as such, and they would send them documents and passports and IDs with that address, with of course all these fraudulent documents that show that they own the property when in reality they were not the owners. So number one, it's very important that you use a realtor or a licensed agent that you trust when you're doing a real estate transaction, because there's a lot of ways that a licensed agent can protect you, your interests, and of course you know that you're dealing with somebody that is regulated by the state of Texas. Number one, whoever you trust, I'm sure you know somebody that you can trust. That would be the person to use. Um, Number two, now we're seeing that not only on the rental side, but also on the purchasing and the selling side. We have seen some instances when buyers, they're looking for land and they find some land on Zillow or one of these national websites, and we actually help them. When I say we, as an agent, or they go to a title company or whatever, and they go through with the whole transaction, and they're dealing with somebody that again is posing as a seller, that is not the seller of the property, have no interest. They just took a picture of that house, probably from Google Maps or whatever, uploaded to this particular website, and happens to be that they're not a seller. They produce fraudulent documents, like Patricia said. They have their own notaries that they use, and of course, this person never goes to the title company, because nowadays we can do this virtually. We can do this, email paperwork, or overnight it or whatever. And like Patricia said, having working for a national company like Stewart, they see these trends and they are quick to catch these things and be more proactive on how to handle the situations now. Um, one of the many, many reasons why I love using Story Title is because they're very proactive, and they're very strict when they're handing one title to another title, one person title ownership title from one person to another. They do a lot of it's a title search, a lot of examination, and again, one of the many reasons why I like to use this company, because they've been in the industry for over 100 years. They're nationwide, and they're quick to catch all these things. In the particular cases that you have seen, Patricia, where are these sellers? I mean, what documentation are they giving you to, I guess, support the fact, the evidence, quote unquote, that they are the actual seller of the house?
Uh, Identification. And the identification, I mean, there's ways they're
Falsified.
creative to falsify their identification. And so you see the picture of this person with all the information from the true owner of the land.
Wow.
So, of course, there's some red flags, and one of the biggest red flags is how much they're selling the property for, the land. Is it they're selling it less than what it's actually worth? So that's kind of a big red
If it's
flag to
too
us.
good to be
Too
true, it's
good to be true.
probably too good to be true.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
hmm And then, of course, that they want to close quickly. We understand it's a cash transaction, and of course, sometimes we have to take our time. I mean, we've been in that situation where we're not ready. We have to wait a little bit. So that's one of the biggest red flags too. Is like, I need to close because I'm either leaving the country, I'm going to be out of town, or this is a cash transaction, so I need to close quickly.
So a sense of rush, of urgency.
Yes, urgency. Another thing is that they want to use their own notary because, of course, we have our own vetted notaries that we send out to them. But when they say, hey, you know what, I'm going out of town or I'm going to do this, of course, the first thing we're going to recommend on a cash transaction is that they do a RON, the remote online notary, because they don't have to go anywhere. They could do it from their laptop at home, wherever they're at. I've had people during close when they're on a cruise, Hawaii, Mexico, wherever they are, especially in a cash transaction, they can always do that. And so they tell you that they don't have access to a laptop, which is really like most of the people now
Yeah.
do have access, and that's what they want to do because it's the easiest thing to do. And so that's one of the biggest red flags too. Or no, it's because I already have my own notary. So there's different things that we're requiring now of the notaries. If they want to use that own notary, we have a list of things that is probably going to deter them from trying to use a notary because we're going to have that they have their E&O insurance of up to $50,000. They have to be commissioned by the notary here in Texas or wherever they're at. So there's going to be different things that we're going to require of those notaries. So it's not going to be so easy for them to tell us, oh, you know what, I already know somebody at the bank, credit union that can notarize those documents for me.
Wow. So, like Patricia said, something that again they have a network. I mean, it's not uncommon for a seller or a buyer to sign documents from somewhere else. Whether if it's I had a client, I've had clients in New York, California, Florida, you name it, signing documents. So this is not uncommon. What it is uncommon is perhaps that they insist on using their own notary when Stewart Title have notaries that they have, I guess, certified, or they have, know these notaries they have a relationship with, and they have them nationwide, guys. I mean, we have, we close people in Mexico, we close people in other countries, we close people literally anywhere and everywhere. And again, the thing that Stewart Title has is they have this network of notaries that they already know that they are actually notaries. Again, another layer of protection to protect you from fraud. So sometimes people ask, well, why do I have to go through a title company, or why do I have to, go to probably one of the strictest title companies? Well, this is why, because stuff like this actually happens, and it happens more often than we would want it to happen. So again, all these layers of protection that Stewart is doing, I think is great because it's going to protect my buyer, my seller from fraud or from them spending their money. A lot of these deals, like Patricia mentioned, they're cash deals because we don't have to go through a mortgage company. Again, another layer of protection. Or something like a land. I mean, how are you going to go show land? You just drive up there. You don't have to notify the seller, Mr. Seller, can I show your property, or can I, walk into your house or whatever? That's another reason probably why they're targeting land. So like I said, all these things, Story Title is asking for extra, I guess, requirements from their notaries just to make sure that they're actually notaries in the event that you actually have a notary that you know that is a notary and you're going to use. So, how often have you been seeing this, Patricia?
Pretty often. I mean, not everybody's reporting it, but we see it for even for us to get a bulletin directly from our corporate offices about what steps we need to take because it is happening and it's happening a lot.
Wow. Okay. So there you have it, guys. Another way that that we are trying to inform the community of what's out there. Again, reach out to somebody that you trust. I'm sure any licensed realtor, maybe a mortgage person, a title company. Always make sure that when you're doing a real estate transaction, you cover all the bases. Don't rush into things. Rushing into things often result in people cutting corners, and the result is not as good as something going through the book and taking the steps and the time that it needs to be taken so that we can cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Anything you want to add, Patricia?
Just that, thank you for giving me the opportunity because this is really a real public announcement to everybody here because we don't want you to be that person that happens to, and especially if you're the agent representing that buyer. I mean, those are your customers for life, so we want to make sure everything's done correctly because they're going to come back to you all the time, through whenever they have a real estate transaction.
Perfect. As always, guys, if you have any questions, if you want to go further into this, you can always reach me, 915-799-6210. You can always reach Patricia at her
Cell phone?
cell phone.
Yes,
There you go, okay.
Yes, 915-443-2302.
Perfect. For those of you in the industry, you know how to get a hold of Patricia, and you know how amazing she is and what they do. They're a Stewart. If you're just a seller or a buyer and you want to go straight to a title company to ask these questions before you make a move, again, Patricia is always available, and she's a plethora of knowledge in the industry. All right, guys. Anything else? No. All righty, guys. Until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.